Hello everyone. So we're going to be talking about the part 2 of the SM Stirlings The Change series. So the first one of the next 3, the next trilogy, is Dies the Fire. And this is taking place in around the 1990s, mid-1990s. It doesn't necessarily have to connect to the Nantucket series, but it happens simultaneously. So as that dome goes over the Nantucket and it disappears into the past, at the same time, all technology stops. Now, I don't just mean electronic technology. A lot of things above a certain level stop working. So electricity doesn't work, gunpowder doesn't work, steam does work, but the pressure that you can build is so low that it might as well not. You know, boiling a kettle is pretty much the amount of steam pressure that you get. So, you know, you're not making trains move, you're not going to be able to have steamboats, nothing. And it just stops like that. You know, it opens up and, you know, planes are falling out of the sky, trains are derailing, you know, cars just stop in the middle of the road causing accidents. The only good thing is because it seems like some chemical reactions aren't working. So, I mean, no nuclear reactors blew up, which, I mean, was kind of nice, because if it did, then let's be honest, you know, the story would be more radioactive zombies than what it is, which might be kind of cool, but at the same time, you know, it's been done. So it was a neat little thing to kind of say, oh yeah, the whole world gets wiped off the face, but because of the nature of why technology stopped, it also means that, you know, nuclear reactors didn't go off. So I thought that was pretty neat way to swerve around the nuclear problem. So yeah, so power goes off. For a couple of the main characters, it's pretty apparent quickly that this is something strange and that the power's not going to come back on. And, you know, even if maybe it does, who knows when, so we should prepare. So, you know, the smart ones got out of the city and started to create their own little societies. And that's where this book, these 3, really take off, because right after the change, you know, everything falls apart. People are going from city to city trying to find food. They're going into the country, eating farms dry. You know, a lot of them resort to cannibalism. But the cool facet is the humans, the people, who develop societies that are unlike anything in the States at that moment. Because, sorry, yeah, it does take place in the United States of America. So that's the main draw, I think, of this book, is that it's our time period lost and these people making new societies. So a major part is this girl who creates a Wiccan society. You know, she's a bard, and so she's a lot of singing, and she's into Wiccan, and then so, you know, she grabs a group of her coven together, and, you know, they make a little homestead, and then as more and more people get around, because, you know, they seem to have what it takes to survive. You know, when the people are out in the woods scavenging, eating chipmunks, you know, when they look over the hill and, oh, there's people, you know, farming, getting potatoes and not starving to death, yeah, sure, they might worship a antlered-headed wolf god who, you know, brings the wheat and the sun and the harvest season and stuff like that, whatever, but, you know, it works, so they joined. Another one is this place called Mount Angel. I'm not really sure about if that's a real place or not. Actually, throughout all his series, when he references places, it seems to be pretty good. I mean, I'm not much of a history buff, like with the first series, or I'm not very well good with the geography of the states, but from what I can tell so far, everything he does when he references history or places, he works it in to be pretty realistic, from what I can tell. So Mount Angel is like a Catholic stronghold, basically, in the mountains. They become warrior monks, so, you know, they protect the people around them, and it's like this huge mountain fortress type of thing going on. There's a Corvallis, where there's the university, and they're the ones that kind of really stick to the old world beliefs and values. You know, they set it up as the college or university. I can never remember which one for the states it is. The professors are the ones who end up taking over, and, you know, a big part of the society is still going to school, still trying to maintain, you know, a level of life that is similar to what they lost. They don't just completely abandon it like a lot of people do. They try to hold on to it. The other one, that's the main one, is they call themselves the bear killers. They end up, kind of forming like almost like a medieval society where it's like, people own the land and people work on it, but it's not the slave and serf type of thing. It's, this person is there to protect you, and because they protect you, you have to work the land. So, it's a responsibility between the two that's not abused, and so that's a very interesting and nice concept. You have they call them the A-listers, so basically knights, but a little different. So they call them the A-listers, and so, they work the land and they own it, and they have people working for them, and it's their duty, their responsibility to make sure that the people on their land are protected. So it's the knight system of serfs on your land, but in the best way for it, which is, it's nice. It's, the way it works out is nice. A good portion of places end up doing a sheriff farmer type of thing. So the sheriff ends up becoming the boss man, and people work on it, and that kind of devolves more into like farmsteading. So like, they work the farm and they don't really have much of a say, but they get food because they have work for it and stuff like that. And that's a good portion of the middle part of the United States that goes like that. To the north, and the main baddies, they are, they call them the PPA, the Portland Protectorate Association, and they went full medieval. It was the guy who started it was a society member. I think that was what they called it. So basically like a reenactor, basically. He was all into medieval society before anyways, so when the change hit, he went, here's my chance to be a king. And so he made himself a king, and he set up knights, but then he went, instead of doing like the bear killers, the knights with the, instead of like the owning land and having people that it's your duty to protect, it went more, here's land and here's slaves to run it. So yeah, it went like full like that. So they have knights, lords, counts, ladies, here's your land, here's your slaves, here's your serfs to work the land, you give us some stuff, here's your coinage, here's your taxes. They went all out, which, it sucks for the people who have to work on the land, because they are treated as slaves. But for everyone else, it's quite nice, and like right off the bat, people are like ready to jump in to be knights and stuff like that, because it works. And that's the main thing, when cars break down, it takes longer to get places. So if you're in a place where things are working, where you're being fed, and you're not going to starve to death, you're going to latch on to whatever works. And it just so happens that the people in Portland ended up latching on to someone who wasn't exactly a nice guy. So yeah, so that's the main cultural thing, and that's the big draw of the books. So they end up, getting into fights and with the PPA as the main bad guy, and they're all unique and interesting fighting styles. So like the Wiccans, they are longbow. They go Celtic and stuff like that. So face paint, longbow and stuff like that. The bear killers are more cavalry, but light cavalry, so like medium armor, lances, yes, and stuff like that. But they also try to do horseback archery and things like that. Corvallis, actually I liked Corvallis because I thought it was a unique twist on things. Because the roads are still intact, so they use bicycles to get around, and then they have pikes that are, instead of being, because pikes are quite large, so they have them kind of like screwed in half and like stuck into a backpack over their shoulder, and they bike out to battle, put the bike on the kickstand, pull the pike, put it together, march in formation, and then they're there. So I thought that was pretty cool because on hard pavement a bike can outbeat a horse. So that was really cool. That's what I liked. His military aspect of it was quite nice, because then the PPA went full knight, so there's knights and crossbowmen, and but the knight on the horse is like their main sort of warfare, which is also the weird thing about it, because I'm not a huge history guy, but I know a little bit, so I find it kind of weird when all of a sudden everyone knows how to use a warhorse, and even after a few years, it'd be really hard to have everyone know how to use a warhorse, decked out in, you know, heavy armor and stuff like that. When in reality, you know, the knights there wasn't that many knights. It was mostly people in, like, you know, sorry, what do you call it, like leather vests, or, you know, simple small armor with like a sword and a pike or a spear, and that was like the main part of the army. You know, you have some crossbowmen and stuff like that, and you have some light cavalry, but yeah, the knights weren't the main. I mean, they were the main force because they were, you know, the lords of the land, but like there wasn't hundreds and hundreds of them going into battle all the time, because, you know, walking around and like however much they weighed was pretty tiring. But yeah, so the fighting is pretty cool, and then, you know, they use, I mean, the only way you can get around that is saying, like, because there's all these cities filled with, like, steel and, you know, weapons and things like that they could use and melt down and remake, so, I mean, I guess that could be the explanation for that. I do remember reading one time, somewhere online, when S.M. Stirling was talking about his series, he was saying how, you know, like, that people were complaining that too much things went well for the characters, but then he said something like that, well, you know, in a situation like that, if you're not lucky, you're dead. So, I mean, that kind of explains away pretty much everything, right? So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's not a huge, in-depth story, but the way, you know, everyone sets up their societies and things like that, it's quite nice. And then in the later series, you get to meet even more people, but it's mostly those ones I talked about that are the main contenders for this area of land, and you do end up learning a little bit more about the rest of the world. You learn a little bit of what's going on with England, and, you know, a lot of Europe is destroyed, because they call these things called death zones, where, you know, people from one city ate their way across the land, and by the time they got to the other city, people from that city had eaten their way across the land, and then, you know, there's nothing left, no food, you know, they hunted out as much as they could, you know, stripped the land of anything, and they just all died. You know, and there's like plague in cities and stuff like that, so like a lot of the population of the world is gone. And so it was saying, like, you know, a lot of Europe is gone, and then, you know, the Pope is no longer in Italy. Actually, I can't remember where he relocated to, unfortunately, sorry. But yeah, it's like England's kind of going around the world, setting up new colonies, so it's kind of back to, you know, Empire of England will rise again sort of stuff, and you hear some Russians have done pretty well. Apparently Australia, I think it was, that got completely destroyed, but then New Zealand did really well, so New Zealand is like repopulating Australia or something like that. It's been a little while, so I don't have all the details, and I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to ruin it, because it's all fun to learn all this stuff. But yeah, so that is the next 3 of the change. The main parts are learning about the new societies that form up and how they're going to survive with, you know, natural things like needing food, but then at the same time, you know, the PPAs looming over their shoulders being the bad guys, big baddies, and their knights and stuff like that. So yeah, so if you like fantasy and you like, you know, end of the world apocalypse scenarios, it's an interesting apocalypse scenario. Yeah, so that's everything for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, found it entertaining, found it informative, and yeah, so I'll see you for the 3rd video, which is the next set.